Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, just a very quick review, of course, not of the first 9 chapters, the first 15 chapters. So we are on the 16th chapter now, and just a very quick run through what has happened so far. So first chapter, Arjun becomes a little bit bewildered, weakness of heart, he doesn't want to fight. He's Krishna's main man, puts Krishna in a little dilemma. And but luckily he's got the sense to ask Krishna for help, which is the second chapter. He surrenders on to Krishna, who immediately explains to him about his identity, real identity, which is the soul, and then the various duties connected to the body and the soul. And then he talks about the nature of the person who does his duties. And then in the third chapter, Krishna explains about karma yoga, how one should try to do one's duty without being attached to the fruits of the duty, the labor. And in that way, one sets an example to the world and avoids sinful activities. Then on the fourth chapter, Krishna explains about knowledge, how to acquire knowledge, how knowledge is passed down. And initially, he is the one who's given the knowledge in the first place to Ikshvaku, transcendental knowledge, which unfortunately over generations got lost, and now he is again explaining it to Arjun. And then he also explains his mission. The most important part of that is that his mission is to reclaim us. He says, Janma Karma Chame Dev. Anybody who knows about his birth, his appearance, and his activities, they won't, upon leaving this body, come back to this world. So this is his main mission. Then he describes the different, in the fourth chapter, still describes different types of activities, actions, akarma, karma, vikarma, and the importance of acquiring knowledge. In the fifth chapter, Krishna talks further about karma yoga, because there's different stages of karma yoga. In the fifth chapter, he talks about karma yoga in Krishna consciousness, where one starts to look at, take into account the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And when one does this, one becomes, gets equal vision. He doesn't discriminate between different souls. Then Krishna could still detect that Arjun was not completely convinced about the battle. Perhaps he still wanted to go to the forest. So in the sixth chapter, he talks about what he has to do in order to fix the mind, Astanga Yoga. And that perplexes Arjun. He says to Krishna very clearly that my mind is very strong and obstinate. I can't control the mind. It's more easier for me to control the wind than the mind. And then Krishna explains that actually to control the mind, one needs to practice and become detached. Arjun then asks some very nice questions. He asks, what happens to the unsuccessful yogi? Because this process is tough. So is he neither in the spiritual world nor in the material world? Because he's taken the spiritual path, but he doesn't achieve it, but he's left the material world, material path, so he's lost that as well. And Krishna very nicely explained, no, he's never lost. Even when you make a little progress in the spiritual path, it will never be lost. So it's a wonderful thing for us to remember. In the seventh chapter, Krishna talks about where he can be perceived in this world, and who approaches him, who doesn't approach him. What's the results of worshipping devatas? And in the eighth chapter, Arjuna asks 8 questions. And the focus there is, the chapters are talking about the most confidential knowledge. It talks about, this is attaining the Supreme. And Krishna talks about what happens at the time of death. If one remembers him, one goes to him. Whatever one remembers, one will achieve. So then in the 9th chapter, Krishna talks about, this is the most confidential information he gives about his nature, his inconceivable nature, how serving him is incomparable to the other processes of trying to attain the Supreme. And he also describes his forgiving nature. Again, Krishna explains one who api sudacharo, if one is fallen, makes a mistake, he's not completely rejected. He's not rejected because if he's situated in bhakti, he's properly situated and he will correct himself. So Krishna is showing his forgiving nature. Then the 10th chapter, Krishna explains a lot more detail about where he can be perceived in this world. And he also says that this is just a very small portion of his opulence. Then Arjuna asks him in the 11th chapter, he wants to see his universal form. Krishna shows it to him. And it's quite devastating because Arjuna can see his own army, the army of the Kauravas, all being crushed between Krishna's teeth. So he's suddenly realized that, hey, this is not the same Krishna which I've been sitting on the same bed with, eating with him. And he starts apologizing to the Lord, realizing his greatness. And then eventually Krishna again reverts back to his two-handed form, settling Arjuna's mind. Then Arjuna asks the question, very good questions. Is it better to worship your personal form or your impersonal form? This is the 12th chapter. And Krishna describes to him that always better to worship the personal form. And then Krishna explains the process of bhakti yoga. If you can't fix your mind on me, then try to follow the rules and regulations of bhakti. If you can't do that, work for me. If you can't do that, surrender your fruits onto me. If you can't do that, cultivate knowledge, like that. And then he also describes the glories, greatness of his devotees. This is the 8 verses, very nice 8 verses. He speaks about the glories of the devotees. Then the 13th chapter, Arjuna asks him further questions. He wants to know more about this material world. So Krishna gives him the answer about what the field is, what the knower of the field is, Ishwar, the Paramatma he talks about, and then he talks about material world. And then in the 14th chapter, Krishna gives more detail about how this material world works through the 3 modes of material nature, how they act, impact us, how we can also become free from them. And then the last chapter that we looked at, the 15th chapter, Krishna gives a little bit more of an overview of this material world comparing to the spiritual world and the relationship between the jiva and himself in relation with the supreme, with the world. So just carrying on with that theme a little bit. So 15th chapter, he talks about, gives the example of the banyan tree, which is a reflection of the spiritual world. So he's talking about the reflection of the spiritual world. And how the 3 modes of material nature nourish this tree, the branches of the tree, and also how there are extra roots that come up, extra branches according to the activities of the living entities. Some can be auspicious, inauspicious, and this tree just becomes very huge, entangling. Branches everywhere, roots everywhere, leaves everywhere. And the more activities we do, the deeper we get entangled in this tree. And especially when our activities are not so good, we go further down. And then when the activities are good, they can we can be a little bit into the heavenly planets perhaps, but still we are in the material world, which is a shadow of the spiritual world. So before we progress on to the 16th chapter, just wanted to read, we read this yesterday, but I only actually picked up the first paragraph, but there's another paragraph to this, which I wanted to share with devotees. Yeah.
No work in all Indian literature is more quoted because none is better loved in the West than the Bhagavad Gita. Translation of such a work demands not only knowledge of Sanskrit, but an inward sympathy with the theme and a verbal artistry, for the poem is a symphony in which God is seen in all things. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada is, of course, profoundly sympathetic to the theme. He brings to it, moreover, a special interpretive interpretative insight, a powerful and persuasive presentation in the Bhakti tradition. The Swami does a real service for the students by investing the beloved Indian epic with fresh meaning. Whatever our outlook may be, we should all be grateful for the labor that has led to this illuminating work. This is Dr. Geddes McGregor, Distinguished Professor of Philosophy at the University of Southern California.
So very nice academic review there of Srila Prabhupada's work. So now we're into the 16th chapter. Here, Krishna describes about the divine and demoniac natures, explaining to Arjuna how we can go up and down this tree, this banyan tree, and it depends on our nature, which can be demoniac or it can be divine. Those who possess divine qualities and regulated lives, they abide by scripture authority. They gradually attain spiritual perfection. But those who live in a with demoniac qualities, live whimsically, without following the rules, they attain lower births and further material bondage. So this tree becomes more and more deep-rooted. In the previous ages, the distinction between divine and demonic was very clear. In Satya Yuga, for example, it said that the demoniac lived in a different planet from the demon.
Divine.
From the divine. And the examples are, there's a few examples in there, like Hiranya Kashipu. He actually occupied the heavens at one point, but his jurisdiction was not on this earth necessarily, different planet. Bali Maharaj, Patalok, yeah. And then in Satya Yuga, they were in different countries, like Ramachandra and Ravan. Ram was in Bharat, Ravan was in Lanka. And then in Dwapar Yuga, the enemy came closer. In the same family, different bodies. So in the same family, you got the Kauravas, and then you got the Pandavas. Pandavas have got divine qualities, the Kauravas have got demoniac qualities. So they always lived at some sort of distance, hardly any mixing. Of course, in modern times, these dividing lines disappeared to the extent that the divine and demoniac, they coexist in the same individual, within the same individual. So it's said that we have both these divine and demoniac qualities. The enemy is within in Kali Yuga. It's not outside anymore. It's within us. And there's three themes in this chapter. One, Krishna explains the qualities of the saintly person. Second, he talks about the weaknesses of the demoniac. And he systematically exposes the attitudes. And when we go through this, we will see how familiar we are with these qualities. And these qualities actually destroy one's spirituality. So we have to be very careful to cultivate divine qualities. And Krishna also explained the third part of the theme is how to get out of this demoniac quality and attain the spiritual destination. So let's read the first theme. Yeah, Amita Krishna Prabhu, are you free to read? We may not be.
Just read.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. Oh, we didn't do the. Did we do the thing? Yes. Okay, Prabhu.
Shall I start?
Yes, please.
Text 16, the divine demonic nature. Text 1 to 3, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, fearlessness, purification of one's existence, cultivation of spiritual knowledge, charity, self-control, performance of sacrifice, study of the Vedas, austerity, simplicity, non-violence, truthfulness, freedom from anger, renunciation, tranquility, aversion to fault-finding, compassion for all living entities, freedom from covetousness, gentleness, modesty, steady determination, vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, cleanliness and freedom from envy and from the passion for honor. These transcendental qualities, O son of Partha, belong to godly men endowed with divine nature. Text 4. Pride, arrogance, conceit, anger, harshness, and ignorance, these qualities belong to those of demonic nature, O son of Pritha. Text 5. The transcendental qualities are conducive to liberation, whereas the demonic qualities make for bondage. Do not worry, O son of Pandu, for you are born with divine qualities. Text 6. O son of Partha, in this world there are two kinds of created beings. One is called divine and the other demoniac. I have already explained to you at length the divine qualities. Now hear from me of the demoniac.
Thank you. Thank you for reading that so nicely. So this is the first theme. The three texts here, Krishna explains the good qualities. And then he talks about the bad qualities, the demoniac qualities. And then he explains to Arjun how the divine qualities are conducive to liberation. But he also says to Arjun very nicely, do not worry, O son of Pandu, for you are born with divine qualities. So he's assuring Arjun, don't worry. So on the tree of material world, this banyan tree that we're looking at, divine qualities are said to elevate us, whereas demoniac qualities will result in degradation. And these are the results of nature and nurture. So as we nurture the divine qualities, we will go towards liberation. While we undoubtedly carry impressions from previous lives, our willpower, determination, activities in this life can significantly alter that nature. So sometimes it's said that, oh, it's our karma, we can't change anything and just accept what's going to happen. Yes, to a certain degree, but it is in our power to react. So if we react in the proper way with the divine qualities, then we can actually alter our destiny even, especially with the help, assistance of the Guru and Krishna. So Krishna describes 26 divine qualities, and then he describes 6 major demoniac qualities. So what we wanted to learn from this was to recognize our weaknesses and use them to our advantage. How can we use our weaknesses to our advantage? Well, simply by recognizing our bad qualities and praying earnestly to the Lord to guide us is the way where we turn a weakness into a strength. So I may have mentioned this story before, so excuse me if you've heard it a few times, but I really like this because it gives a demonstration of how we can use our weakness and turn it into a strength. So there was a lad who didn't have a right arm. He lost it in an accident, but he had a strong desire to learn judo. So he went to a judo school. He asked the teacher, please, can you help me learn judo? And the teacher said, yes, I can help you, but you have to do exactly what I tell you. And the student said, yes, I'm happy to do that. So he taught him just a few things. Mainly he taught him one move. And the student would always wonder, he's not teaching me anything else. But he didn't question it. Anyway, there was a competition. And the school was entered into that competition, the judo school. And the boy was also entered into that competition. And he was thinking, just because I'm coming to the school, they've entered me. How can I make any progress in this competition? I only got one hand. So anyway, he won the first round. He was surprised. He won the second round. He won the third round. He was in the quarterfinal. He won that. He was in the semi-final. He won that. Then he appeared in the final. And amazingly, he won it. And then he went to his teacher and he said to him, how did this happen? I've got such a disadvantage. how did I win this competition? So the teacher answered him that I taught you the deadliest move in judo. And the only way that this move could be counteracted is by your opponent grabbing your right hand. And you don't have a right hand. So his disadvantage was turned by his teacher into an advantage. So in the same way, we have in this age of Kali Yuga lots and lots of weaknesses. We know our own weaknesses. We know them very clearly. We may try to cover them up when we're in front of others. But inside, deep down, we know where we are failing in our quest for spiritual advancement. So if we take shelter of the Lord, of the spiritual leaders, spiritual master, and we reveal our weaknesses to them, and they will assist us. They will turn those weaknesses into strengths. They will turn them into strengths. For example, this is maybe not quite a weakness, but Sudama was very poor, very, very, very poor. Couldn't even afford to eat. Couldn't afford to serve the Lord in any external way. Of course, he was always serving the Lord internally. But his weakness, if you like, of lack of resources was turned into a strength. Right? It was turned into a strength because he approached the Supreme Lord. Of course, his intention, because he was persuaded by his wife, was to ask for wealth, but he never did. He even forgot about asking for wealth when he was with Krishna in his palace. But somehow, because of his weakness, he approached the Supreme Lord, and it was turned into a huge, huge success for him. Because he met the Lord and he spent time with the Lord, he appreciated the Lord. Later on, the Lord rewarded him with so much opulence, but he didn't care for that opulence at all. He still lived outside the palace. He didn't want to know anything about the opulence. So his weakness is his strength. So similarly, we will have lots of weaknesses, and somehow we have to try to find a way to turn those weaknesses into strengths. So I wanted to pass over to Madhusudan Prabhu. Would you like to please make a comment or two?
Yeah, Haribol, Hare Krishna. Wow, we made it to chapter 16. And we're going through it now. Wonderful. But this is a wonderful chapter as well because it really makes us realize where there's some sort of a dividing line, you know. There's divine and the demoniac nature. But there are 26 qualities which Krishna goes through, and that's text 1, 2, and 3. All those 26 qualities are ones that we're trying to aspire to develop in us, you know. And certainly when we want to look at any particular type of qualities and we don't understand somehow, you know, then we can look at the examples that you like. For example, you gave the examples of someone who had weaknesses, but at least he turned them into strength or to an advantage, so that, you know, we can use it to an advantage. So it's quite a few things listed here, and actually it would be good if devotees go through and read this purport of Srila Prabhupada, because it breaks down each one of these, like for example, charity, which will come a bit later on later on in the Bhagavad Gita, next chapter as well. And then some of the things are straightforward, study of Vedas. We can't study Vedas, but the source of the Vedas is Krishna, Bhagavad Gita. We should be studying that, and we are doing that, and that's a good sign. We perform austerities, things like aversion to fault finding. Yeah, we should avoid that, not be so critical of other people and their situation. We need to stay calm, freedom from anger, modesty, and forgiveness. And there's so many qualities, you know. But as we look at the example of Prabhupada or great acharyas, and we look at their life, you know, then we really understand how modest they were, or how modest Prabhupada was, how gentle he was, but then at the same time he was hard when he wanted to be. And so, you know, other devotees now, as the years have gone, I hardly knew anything about Prabhupada, but over the years, having read his biography, I've never met him. I nearly missed him at the manor. But as we study, a lot of devotees are now revealing the qualities of Prabhupada, and from the example we can learn how to develop these divine qualities. But chanting, and by Lord Chaitanya's mercy, we are on this platform and understanding how we can progress. But then having looked at the demoniac nature as well, we try to reduce that, you know, as much as we can. So these are transcendental qualities, and we should be cultivating them. And we'll do different things according to our different status in our life, you know, our different social or status and things we have to do. So we should be making progress towards this, and that gives us transcendental realization, as Prabhupada says, you know. So that's good. So study these qualities and can further, you know, understand more as we go through this chapter.
Thank you very much. Actually, I forgot to mention the most important point I was going to make. In this world, we are naturally weak because this is Kali Yuga. Our memories are short. Hence why I forgot what I was going to say. We get angry quickly. Tolerance levels are very dodgy, very low. So there's so many weaknesses in this age. So actually, our natural inclination should be, my dear Lord, I cannot do anything. I'm completely dependent on you. So we're turning, if we pray in that mood, we're turning our weakness, all our downfalls in Kali Yuga, into a huge strength, because we approach the Lord in a humble, sincere way. And anybody who approaches the Lord in a humble, sincere way will melt his heart, guaranteed. So we turn all of these weaknesses, because of Kali Yuga, because of our natures, into one massive strength. Because we can pray with tears in our eyes, because really we got nothing to be particularly proud of. One little bug can knock us out for long periods of time. We got nothing to be proud of in terms of the strength of our body, the strength of our mind, strength of our intelligence. So it's almost a natural inclination for those in Kali Yuga to feel weak. But that weakness should not be a meekness. It should be a use to our advantage, that we can then approach the Lord in a humble, sincere manner. Any questions, any comments, please?
Prabhuji?
Yes, Naniva.
Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I'm sure there are people with the mixed qualities, isn't it?
Yes.
Some blind, demonical, so a third class with the mixture of all these qualities, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. We'll have both divine and demonic. And depending on the time of day, we will exhibit different qualities. Early morning, we might be in a bit of a meditative mood. Unless, of course, we are running late, then we'll be perhaps in a bit of a demoniac mood. It just depends. We can turn, unfortunately, from divine to demoniac very quickly, in a moment, within a moment. At least I know I can. So these are both the divine and demoniac are within us, but the demoniac is a little bit more prominent because of Kali Yuga. It's a little bit more prominent.
Yeah. Okay, Prabhuji.
Thank you. And it's a good point, Madhusun, that it's good to learn. It's good to read through these qualities. We've done it a few times because Krishna has explained this a few times. So I didn't focus on that. And we thought, let's just look at the weakness part of us and see how we can turn that weakness into a strength. Aruna, you have a question?
This just to say that the patience my parents had towards me and what I have towards my. So my parents had so much patience and patience. Does that make sense?
Sorry, just repeat that.
Parents had so much patience.
Like our elders, like parents, they had so much patience with me.
Right.
I compare myself with when I'm talking to my daughter. I don't have that patience, so.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. It does make sense.
How the generation after generation has changed with patience and material things.
Yeah, I completely get what you're saying. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. I think times have changed in a big way. Yeah. We have less patience with our children. We have bigger expectations.
Yeah.
On the other hand, they perhaps have less, perhaps care towards parents, because that's the general nature of society now. Look after oneself. Yeah, it's the influence of the nature of these age. But times have changed drastically. And whether one is a devotee or a non-devotee, they affect both.
Yeah.
It's the way of the world at the moment. But the good thing is, if we had great children, right, we would become attached to them. And even if they are devotees, attachment to children will bring one back to this world. Definitely. Whereas if the children perhaps are not so well behaved, that can be a very big blessing. So that weakness can be turned into a strength. Okay, I don't get on so well with my children. I'm going to be a little bit detached from them. That's actually a good thing. That's not a bad thing. Because from the spiritual angle, from a material angle, yes, we will be hurt. No doubt about that. But from a spiritual angle, it's a good thing, Mataji. It's a really good thing.
Thank you.
It's not easy, but it's good.
But, also if you can work together spiritually to elevate everyone spiritually, then that's
first class.
That's the way to do it, really.
But in this age of Kali Yuga, even within the family, even within your own children, it's not going to be always possible. It's really hard.
Even with husband and wife, it's difficult to work together sometimes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, we are sitting here together very nicely, but there is not a day that goes by when we do not have a fight. Argument, at least.
I agree thoroughly.
Kamakshi.
Yeah.
Saying anything. Thank you.
Well, yeah, that's why Navi and all devotees say, Krishna uses specific words, and there is deep meaning behind this, and the purports really expand this. Even when there's a word used called abhijatasya, Krishna uses in this verse. And that really, as Prabhupada explains that, actually, that refers to someone who is born with transcendental qualities or godly tendencies. And it says there, that to beget a child in a godly atmosphere, that's why we have some sanskaras. Sanatana Dharma encourages, like we do Garbhodana sanskar, Then as the children are growing up, we do Anadan, Sanskar, name giving, all these different Sanskars. So when a couple is, wanting to child, then obviously they do the Sanskar where they want to invite a soul that is actually a soul that is going to have godly tendencies and all that. And sometimes when the children are beget, by just without any kind of consideration, through rape and all that, then children are born with demoniac qualities, So when we want children and to improve the society, Prabhupada explained that where they should follow the principles recommended, for social, kind of better qualities of children that are born as well. And then obviously it becomes our responsibility and duty to guide our children and put them in the atmosphere where there is God consciousness going on and guide them, but sometimes it's not very easy. And then also, when Prabhupada also explains how anger, the word krodha, akrodha, that, we have to tolerate at times somebody who's get angry at us. But yeah, it's interesting, this part where we do have to try to develop qualities. But like you say, patience is a great virtue, as they say.
Indeed. Suresh, you wanted to say something?
Afternoon to everybody.
Hello there.
I think your foundation is very, very important. See, once the foundation is laid, then you are sort of motivated towards, well, spiritually, it will come within yourself.
Excellent point.
Nobody will force you.
Yeah.
And then that material world will come with it. Then you have the willpower. Willpower will be, it's in you. Whether, say for example, I want something or I want to detach myself with something. Detachment is the best thing. But the thing is, it's so hard to detach. It is so hard to detach. We are always striving to detach ourselves to any world, but we live with the material world. Certain things you can't, like now in this corona thing, what did we do? People were rushing to the shops. People were, mad about everything. It didn't teach us anything, did it? we still made, people were so greedy.
It taught us how bad we are.
Well, I'm not saying that, but the thing is, even if you're spiritual, but I think spiritual people may be greedy. Yeah, I'm sorry to say that. But the thing is that we have to have willpower now. Corona, this virus is teaching us, but I don't know how far we will go in the learning process.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I agree with that comment. The thing with detachment is, it's as you said, it's very, very, very difficult. The only way detachment is actually possible is if one becomes attached to the Supreme Lord. Because what happens, there's a process. When we become a little bit more attached to the Lord by doing some bhakti, he then makes things happen. He makes things happen, and this is where the process comes in. As you become more attached to him, he makes you less attached to this world. And you will see in a very practical way. And this coronavirus is a perfect example.
Yeah.
That, if, we spiritualists generally have a tendency that they want to be detached from this material world, right? What has coronavirus done? It stopped us in many of our material activities so that we can actually focus on the spiritual. I know for me, it definitely had that impact.
Yeah.
That now we don't care for a lot of the material activities that we were doing before coronavirus.
Mm.
But this is not that I've suddenly become detached. It's because Krishna has put in this process for us, because we're trying to become attached to him. He's trying to reduce our attachment to this world. So it's not something that is an artificial imposition. If we try to become detached artificially, it can't work. Because our basic, as you said, the foundation is still there. The attachment is still there at our root. But Krishna destroys it at the root if we become attached to him. Does that make sense, Suresh?
Yeah. So we have to work hard
Yes.
to move on.
We have to work hard to become attached to
Yes.
Krishna by bhakti. And that's not hard work. This is the beauty. When we chant Krishna's name, when we hear about Krishna's activities, when we talk about Krishna, and we take prasad, we just relishing, we just enjoying. So where is the burden? There isn't any.
You have to enjoy. I'll give you an example, because Tuesday is Janmashtami, and
Actually,
I have been
Wednesday. You're right. Some calendars say Tuesday, but actually the day is Wednesday. That's when the Rohini
Tuesday
Nakshatra.
midnight. Tuesday midnight.
Yes. Starts from Tuesday midnight.
Yeah. So preparations have started with me, and I enjoyed cleaning the temple. I enjoyed dressing the Krishna, Radhaji. So, that is what you feel, and you are going to move towards it, because it's Janmashtami, it's Lord's birthday. It's just like our children's birthday. So that feeling is godly. So every move, you're just moving towards God, because that feeling is taking you there.
Exactly. Very good. That's where you are very fortunate, because you have divine qualities. So you're very lucky.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Naniben?
Yes. After the detachment, the attachment, I personally feel that what works is that you have to have attachment first, and then the Krishna plants ideas, and you gradually become detached from the material existence. So attachment comes first, not the detachment.
Correct. You're absolutely spot on.
Yeah.
The more one becomes attached to Krishna, then he will make the arrangements for detachment to take place.
Exactly.
We can't do it on our own. We can't do it on our own.
No. Thanks.
Very nice. Very nice. And today what you did was amazing, Naliman. I have to say, you really made my day. I won't reveal it, but Naliman, amazing.
Yeah, it was all because of Din Bandhuji, and I know him and you both well. And it was very nice that you are this ambassador or whatever doing the work locally. And he's in Vrindavan, so that made my day too, Prabhuji.
I'd like to congratulate you.
Thanks, okay.
So rather than rush into the next section, because the next section is going to reveal our minds, our activities, our qualities in a big way. And we will need to really address some of these issues. So the next theme, I'm going to leave it to Monday. I wanted to just give a little introduction to the next theme. Generally, it talks all about demoniac nature. And generally, demons like to, demoniac nature means we want to basically disregard God. So I wanted to tell you one little story. There was a girl who was very inquisitive about God. So she went to her father and said, Father, where is God? Where is God? And father said, God doesn't exist. He doesn't exist. So where did we come from? The daughter said, oh, we came from the apes. Yeah, we came from the apes, monkeys. That's the Darwin theory. That's where we come from. So then the daughter, she wasn't quite happy with that answer. She went to the mother and she said to the mother, where did we come from? And the mother was very spiritual, religious. And she said, we come from God. And then the daughter said, well, I'm a little confused. The father says that we come from the monkeys. You're saying we come from God. Which is it? And the mother said, well, actually, it's both correct. Father's side of the family comes from the monkeys, the apes, and my side of the family come from God. So that's quite interesting, because usually that is about accurate. You know, that the Matajis in this world, ladies generally have divine qualities, and the men generally tend not to. So we probably do come from the apes. Prabhupada was once asked, or somebody made a comment to Prabhupada that we come from the apes. And Prabhupada said, yeah, you might come from the apes. Well, I come from the Brahmin class, Brahmins. And another time Prabhupada somebody also said to Prabhupada, again, the same thing, that, you know, our origin is the apes. And he said to them, yeah, and you're still behaving like apes, you know. So those are quite interesting, quite funny, humorous pastimes. So I was thinking if there's any other questions or comments, otherwise we can go to the Nishinga Kavach.
One question from yesterday, please.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Can you explain a little bit more about fallible and infallible, the Kshar and the Akshara?
Oh, yeah. Yes,
Please.
there are certain living entities who always reside in the spiritual world. They never fall down. And they are called infallible. So they are completely fixed in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Nothing shakes them. And they're happy, they're eternal, they are in full knowledge. Now, those who are fallible are those who live in this world. We are considered to be fallible because we have fallen away from the Supreme Lord. We've come away from Him. And that's because our nature is marginal. There are three energies of the Lord. There's the superior energy, His internal energy. Then there's the external energy, which is the material world. And then there's the marginal energy. We are considered to be marginal energy. And like in a beach, sometimes there's the ocean, there's the sand, and then there's the middle bit where there's a little bit of water and a little bit of sand. There's a mixture. So sometimes, being marginal, we can be influenced by the external energy. And those who are influenced by the external energy are regarded to be fallible souls. So they are not fixed in God consciousness. So, and it's said that because we've been in this world for such a long time, from the calculation of material calculation, such a long time, that we've been here pretty much eternally, because it's been such a long time. But what Krishna also gives the assurance of is that one who takes shelter of him, Devi Esha Guna Mahi, he will, Mamma Maya Darutyaya, he will, this Devi Esha, this material energy, he will protect that person. So even the living entity who's fallible takes shelter of Krishna can be protected from the material energy and ultimately reach Krishna, become fallible, infallible. So there is, that distinction is there, fallible, infallible. Those who live in the material world are fallible, subject to the laws of material nature, three modes of material nature. We act according to ego, we have pride, arrogance, greed, etc. But then there's another class of individuals who are infallible, who always serve the Supreme Lord with love. And ultimately, that's our mission, our destination, our aim, to go back to the spiritual world and again be part of the infallible group. And that is a far bigger group. 90% of the souls live in the spiritual world with Krishna. Naniman, is that okay?
Yeah, so can we as human beings, can we become, are there any, I mean, like Srila Prabhupada, he could be classified as an infallible or?
Oh no, he's infallible because he's come as a messenger of God.
Okay.
He's a messenger of God.
And Nabi, and the meaning of the word infallible or fallible means like even prone to making mistakes, you see.
Yeah, yeah.
And we get deceived easily because we are fallible, we are liable to make mistakes, and we're not being very accurate and all that. So we get cheated, we get deceived. And some living entities are just so fixed in knowledge, like you said, even they can be spiritual entities in the spiritual world, that they're not prone to make any kind of mistakes. They understand the Dharma very easily, very clearly. They stand on the path of Dharma. Like Guru Maharaj always said, fight for Dharma and live for Dharma. And, but because we are prone to making mistakes. And, that's what the word infallible and fallible also means, so.
Very good. Good point. Good point. So, Naniben, yes, there are people, souls that Krishna sends from the spiritual world to us to reclaim us. And they are infallible souls. They're not subject to the laws of material nature. Including Dinabandhu, he would be an infallible character, extraordinary personality. What can you say about him?
Yeah.
Brijbasi.
Take us again to Vrindavan, Prabhuji.
Sorry?
Take us again to Vrindavan. Plan another.
Yeah. We have to, let's get through the lockdown and then we definitely have to make a plan.
Probably next year, middle of
next year now. Next year.
Okay, thank you.
And this is where Shanta will also guide us through Mayapur. Because he lives in Mayapur. Shanta is with us. He's a devotee who lives in Mayapur, and when we went there with the Aruna Ben, he looked after us very, very nicely. So we'll try to do a trip to Vrindavan, Mayapur, and Jagannath Puri, and that will be fantastic. Shanta?
Sure.
Yes, Prabhu. I always ready to serve you.
Very nice.
I just reminded one funny story.
Yes.
And just according to whatever you told about that Mayapur, that is like 2001 or 2. That time I was in Mayapur Brahmachari Ashram. So basically the problem is that so many devotees, their first join is gone. They can't get up early morning, So few devotees are so lazy, they're not ready to go Mangal Aarti. So that authorities, they make one arrangement, who are so lazy devotee and give them an in charge post, Well, okay, tomorrow you are in charge. When they become in charge, they are responsible to, get up the all others devotee. You have to get up 3:30 or before 4, and you just go all rooms and get up that others devotee. And he really don't want, but that's the policy. But that slowly, when this became knowledge is not a burden for get up early morning. So when they get attend the class and came to know about the devotional, then they slowly automatically get up. That's the one funny story. Whatever you explain that. There's the sleeping is there. That weak point, but that weak points became their strong thing.
Yeah, strength.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice point.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for sharing that. I remember when I went to Mumbai temple second time with Jayanti, and I went to Mangalati, and there was Mahamantra, who was I think he was either temple president or vice temple president. So he read out, after Mangalati finished, he read out all the devotees who were late or didn't come. And he said, these devotees will not be given breakfast. I was thinking, wow, that's a heavy, heavy temple. They don't do that anymore. But this was about 32, 33 years ago, long time ago. Okay, Hare Krishna. So, Karuna Banda Mataji, we can recite the Nishinga. Oh man, Nishinga
Hare
Kavach.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Okay.
Shri Lakshmi Nrsimha Devi ki jai, Prahlad Maharaj ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai. Nrsimha